Welcome to Living a Life by Design. It's the journey back to you and living 365 days of purpose with your host, Esther Graham. Did you know your accountability and possibility is by design? God designed a phenomenal life for you, gave you the gift of choice. Esther helps empower you to discover and pursue the purpose that is already in you. Are you ready to look at yourself and see your future? Then get back to what is really important in life and get in alignment with your true self. Stay tuned to Living a Life by Design. Journey back to you and start living 365 days of purpose with your host, Esther Graham. It all starts now.
Welcome to the Life by Design podcast with your host, me, Dr. Esther Graham. And today I have a very special guest, Charcee Starks. Charcee Starks. And so let me just tell you just a little bit about Charcee. We connected probably, would you say, Charcee, maybe about 5 years ago? 4 years ago.
4 years, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, four years ago. And Charcee is a neurotransformational coach. She is the project manager for Motivating the Masses, Lisa Nichols' company. She's worked with Sean Smith and many other phenomenal people. But what I love about Charcee is the name of her company, which is The House and the Woods. The House and the Woods. And this is her guided principle, let's say. It's to guide individuals from living a life of default to one that is intentionally designed. I love that because it goes so much into what I believe in. It's not living a life by default, but living a life by design and being very intentional about it. So everyone, I just want to introduce you to Charcee. And if you have, listen, write your comments, love her up in the chat. And Charcee, reintroduce yourself to the Life by Design community.
Hi. So I am Charcee Starks. I am a coach. Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this conversation because we are so aligned, and this is pretty much our conversations all of the time when we talk. Yeah. But yeah, the concept of the house in the woods in my company and my guiding principle is that we do get to live a life of desire. We just have to make it that way. And so the house, I want to kind of go into what it means for me, but the house is considered in this concept. The house is considered like the default, right? It's the way that we think we're supposed to be living, or our societal influenced belief systems, or our parental influenced belief systems. And those self-defined beliefs kind of keep us where we are supposed to be. It's the idea that there's a right way and a wrong way of doing life. And I just disagree with that. Like, wholeheartedly do not believe there's a right way or a wrong way to do life. I think that life is an experience, right? And so visually, if you think of the house is kind of like walls, ceiling, you're in it, it's closed in, you can't really go far or expansive. And if you think of the woods are vast and expansive, and there's so much space to like build what you want and create this life of desire, right? A designed life, an intentional life. And in the woods, it's the transformation. It's like the changing of yourself or your circumstances or your environment. And it requires a ton of like self-leadership, self-trust, and risk, right? Because
and self-awareness, right?
Like full-blown self-awareness. Yeah, full-blown self-awareness. Yeah. And it requires that self-awareness becomes really like your jump off point for where you're trying to go and what you're trying to create. And so my company is totally and solely based in that. My coaching is totally and solely based in that. And a huge part of what I do is leadership training. And that leadership training is based in that, right? It's, you take ownership for the way that you roll based on what you want aligned for your company, your culture, your people, like your clients. Like, how your team treats your clients, how your team moves with your clients. And the most interesting part of it is that the number one ingredient to get this is grief. And it doesn't even seem like it fits.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I was going to ask you to go back to the house. That's how we've been brought. That's how it's supposed to be. The house is built this way. This is how it's supposed to be. This is how it's always been built. This is what it looks like. And then moving from that to saying, you know what, I can go out and I could build what I want. But then when you just said how to get there is grief, because in our last podcast with Sean, we kind of talked about grief, and grief isn't just a person's like physical death, but it means so many other things. So can we kind of talk about that? What do you mean it's by grief, and how it fits into this is how it's supposed to be, and this is where we move to?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and it's funny because Sean and I talk about this all the time, because we just like, we mind like map and think of things. And so it's interesting that he brought it up, because we do talk about it often. But the thing is, if you think of the identity, right, you think of how you're self-defined, what your identity is. And if you think of the influences that you have, we tend to believe things about ourselves that we were taught to believe about ourselves, right? And so as a child, the biggest thing is like, you grow up, you get a husband, you get a house, you have the dog, you make the kids, you get the
White
career,
picket fence,
the white picket, and everything is like beautiful and perfect and wonderful, and you're the queen of your house, and you have your husband who's the king, and everything's taken care of and beautiful, and you live happily ever after.
Yeah.
Right? Great. I turned 16 and I realized I'm gay.
Yeah.
Totally threw everything that I thought I was supposed to want off.
Right.
My sister also died that year, threw it off. So all these things are like fighting against this system of belief that like I thought was real. Yeah. Right. So I got hit with it with life. Some people don't get hit with it like that. Yeah. So this idea that like everything is supposed to be this right way really got like the rug pulled under me and like through me. Right. But my identity was attached to that belief system. So then I feel wrong. Something's not right with me if I don't want to grow up and have a husband and have kids and do that life and have that picket fence and have that dog. Like, and I'm not even an animal person, right? Like everything's wrong with me because.
And the perfect job, the perfect,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like, and going to college, and my major like wasn't being a lawyer or a doctor. It was art. Like I was a photo major. So it was like everything was wrong with me.
Yeah.
But I felt more like myself doing the things that didn't fit the supposed to.
Yeah.
Right. And so inside of that, and the huge part of that is the grief part, right? Who am I if I'm not a woman who wants to have children? Who am I if I'm not a woman who like has the life that people expect me to have? Who am I? So really what happens is I had to, and I'm going to use my own experience, but I had to really be okay with losing everything I was supposed to be to become who I desired to be.
Wow. Listen to this now. You had to be okay with losing everything that you were supposed to be to become what you desired to be, what you felt you should be. But how do you become okay, with that? Because, I really know what you're speaking of, like losing everything that you're supposed to be, everything that you thought, even if you thought everything I'm supposed to be, I love it. And then it doesn't work out to how it's supposed to be, what I mean? It hits you, and you have to go through the process of saying, I guess this isn't how it was really supposed to be.
Right.
How do you do that? How do you
Oh, it's fun. No, just kidding. So, so if you, right, you're like, yay, I get to like
Yeah,
lose myself and not know who I am. And, but really it's visually, if you think the house is here,
yeah,
the woods is here,
yeah,
there's a field in between. And inside of that field, I think that it's a step-by-step process of grief, of identity shifting, of really recognizing like, who am I really? And that question, who am I without, is
ooh,
a very heavy, heavy question that I ask myself still today, like all of the time. Like I just went through a breakup of 5 years, right? And this happens in any large transition, right?
yeah,
Any big transition is essentially moving from the house to the woods because it wasn't working, or it didn't work like that, or whatever big shift needed to happen. You have to get through that field to really build what you want to be happening there. And
mm,
that field is what consists of exactly what you're talking about, how you get through it. And there are
yeah,
a number of things. There are so many things, but the huge one is recognizing like, who are you without that?
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And this comes in so many ways. Like, who are you without the title of doctor? Who are you without
yeah.
the title of, mom,
Mother, yeah, yeah,
husband, wife, right? Like all of the things that like we define ourselves by that don't really make us up, but are
yeah,
things that we've collected along the way.
yeah,
And really getting back to the core of like who I am, what's aligned, what do I desire, what do I want, and how do I get there?
yeah. I love this conversation, and we're about to take a break in just a second, but I love this conversation because I just remember a time in my life where I lost my identity. And so it's like, wait a minute, who am I? What's my purpose? What am I really doing? And I lost myself in being the wife, in being the mother, in being the professional, in being the pastor slash pastor's wife. I just at one point was just so, it was like, oh my God, who am I? And what happened, and we'll come back and talk about this some more, when I lost myself, just really not being sure who I was anymore, I became very difficult to get along with. I became angry, and while maybe others may not have noticed it, I knew it. And so
Right.
I was difficult to get along with because I just didn't know who I was. I lost myself. And
Right.
this is what's great about this conversation, because I had to go through that process of dying, that grief. And
Yes.
there's so many levels of that, for you to come into who you are, who you're supposed to be, and living that life that's designed for you, living that life that's intentional, that life that you desire. But there's just so much in the process of, how do you say, dismantling,
Yeah.
unlearning, and
Uncovering, dismantling,
uncovering.
yeah, all of
Yeah,
it.
and then bringing it back together again. We're going to come back and talk a little bit about this. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Life by Design podcast, where we just believe in living a life that's intentional, a life that we have been created to live, a life of desire, a life by design. And my very special guest today, again, is Charcee Starks. And we're having a powerful conversation. And we're going to continue to talk about, how do you get from, moving from living that life that you thought you were supposed to live, to now moving into, let's say, the woods, losing your identity and now finding it again, your true identity, living your true self. How do
Yeah.
we do that?
So yeah, I mean, it's like what you were saying, how you get lost inside of your labels, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to's. You're supposed to be a mom. And as a mom, you're supposed to put your kids first. You're
Yeah. Yeah.
supposed to come second to them,
Yeah.
and as a wife, as a pastor's wife, as
Yeah.
all these things where you kind of are taught to put yourself second.
And third and fourth.
Right. And third and fourth and fifth and the back of the line.
Yes,
And
yes.
the misalignment in that is that concept of like, if you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of others? Right. It's the, what is the airline? Put your oxygen mask on before
Yeah,
helping.
yeah. When they're doing the be safe
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Right. And so for safety in
Yeah.
the air, you have to put your oxygen mask on before helping others. In safety in your life, for you to feel safe with yourself, you also have to do that. And we misalign, like we totally get off course with that. And, one of the big ways is that we uphold the labels that we go seek.
Yeah.
Mom, wife, doctor,
Yeah.
whatever the label.
Whatever. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I've good example of that when it comes to mom, with one of my kids, our kids, I just, I felt, listen, when you graduate from high school, the automatic path for you is college.
Right.
Right. And that's just how it was supposed to be. You're supposed to go to college. We all go to college. When you graduate from high school, you go to college. End of story. Right. That's what I was taught. That's what I'm teaching you. That's what it's supposed to be. And I will never forget, like, he had no interest. Our elder had no interest in going to college. And I was so determined. And even though my husband said, Esther, just no, he's going to college. I sat and I did the college application for him. I did every and so, decide, okay, well, but pick the colleges you want to go to. I'll do this, I'll do that. Mom. So then he just I said, I'll pick the college. I mean, it was really I picked the college, I did the college application, I did everything. Right. So then he decided, okay, I'm going to go to college, but I don't want to go out of state. I want to stay in state. Okay, great. Let me do the local college application. Did that, enrolled him, paid the school tuition. I don't even know if he went one day.
Right.
And then one day, at the end of the semester, the parents, you get a report or it comes and I open it and I'm like, oh my God, he's not. What I tell you, it just threw me. It like totally upset the cart for me. But here it is, he didn't want to go. So he didn't show up, but he never said anything, right? He wasn't living at home.
Right.
Right. So, but so we're wasting money.
Right.
For 1 year. Right. And he's a successful entrepreneur. And that's what he loves to do.
Right.
But I was so stuck in what he was supposed to do.
Right. Because you wanted him to fall into the default of his parental influenced beliefs that were his. Yeah. And we did so much. I mean, you were willing to waste money to keep up the thought that he was going to keep those belief systems.
Exactly.
That were totally unaligned with who he was supposed to become.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how deep it is. Right?
That's how deep it is.
You were literally tying a rope around him, dragging him back from the woods and tying him to the house.
And if I could have gone to the classes for him, if I knew, I probably would have gone and sat.
Right. Yeah.
Because
determined.
I was so stuck on that's the only way.
That's the right way.
That's the right way.
Right.
That's what you should be doing.
Right. Absolutely. And we do that generally, we do it to ourselves. Like you had an external example of that happening to your oldest son, but that's what we do to ourselves. We tie ourselves to the house because the woods are scary and it's different and it's risky and it's harder and it's, and it is. In some cases it is, but once you get there and it feels aligned, it isn't anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And the riskiness of it, the difficulty of it, you just begin to embrace it.
Right.
Because this is who I am. Yeah. So true.
And the woods, when you're there, it does feel like home, right? It does feel it when you look at it from afar in the comfort of the house and the identity that you always had and the thoughts that you always knew were right, then you go out and you're looking at this vast, like living a life of desire is scary.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
scary because it's not pre-written.
Yeah.
The life of default's pre-written. You know it from childhood. You know it from Disney movies. You know it from what they show you. You know it from the sitcoms you watch. You know what you're supposed to have, right?
Yeah.
And so I went to this coaching training retreat, and like one of the things that I said there, I stood up and I said, the best thing that ever happened to me was my sister dying. And the whole room lost it.
Yeah.
How could you say that? Like, oh my God. And the thing was, is that I would have never chosen that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have been my decision, but it made me who I am. It really catapulted me into like, I only have a limited amount of time on this planet. How do I want to live it?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And what do I actually desire?
Yeah.
And who am I without her?
Yeah.
Who am I? Like, who do I get to become? How do I get to make her proud? What are the things that, like, she would not be proud of me of going to college and getting my law degree and becoming a lawyer and doing the thing that I had set out to do since 4th grade.
Yeah.
Because now I'm older and I know that's not what I want, but I should do it because I always said I would. She would not be proud of that. She would not have been proud of that. And so that realization really helped catapult this idea of like, if I built my cabin in my woods just the way I wanted it, just the way I needed it to look, how would it look? And I mean, and also like realizing that I loved women and that's the way I was going. And I mean, it did not go over well.
Yeah.
It was a huge risk to come out. And it was a huge risk to like tell people. And this is 1999. Like, this isn't yesterday. Like, this is a while back, you know? And I'm young. And people don't think you know what you know when you're young. And there was so much coming at me, but I was in that field. Like, I knew I needed to step out of the house. And I knew I needed to get to my woods, even though I didn't have this concept then, but I was in the field and it was grief. I lost friends. I lost respect of people. I lost, you know, so many things that come with like who people believe you're supposed to be. And so it's not even only your internal, right? It's your external as well.
Very much so. Very much.
And that external part, our desire to impress and our desire to like meet the expectations of the people who we love and care about becomes part of the internal external conflict of like, what do I actually want? What's aligned for me? And then how do I get there? And it is really small steps at a time. And they don't come easy because we're so used to doing what's convenient or what's defaulted, you know?
Yeah. I love this conversation because it's so true. I think it's true for me. I think it's true for many others. Many of our viewers, our listeners could really identify with really living your life in default and doing the things that you're quote unquote supposed to be doing the things that you were told you were supposed to be doing. And it's in every area of our lives. You understand what I mean? And so you know, and so when you decide to step out of what is viewed as the norm in any area, there's always things, you know, people are going to not want to hang around you anymore, not be around you. They're going to, you know, because they may not understand. And you're just going against the norm. I never forget, and we're about to go on break, and this is what my husband and I, you know, being in ministry, and I will never forget because I was just so let me think of the word. I just many times did not go with the norm, right? And so I will never forget one.
Shocking.
Huh?
It's shocking.
Not with the norm, right? And so And so I will never forget, my husband and I were together, and someone saw us, and was, I guess, a friend of ours, or an acquaintance. And they came up to him and they said, I had a dream about you, and I guess you and your wife. And he said, oh yeah. So he's listening. He said, so, he said there's a group of fish and it's all going upstream, and he's a part of the group of fish, right? And then there was this one fish who was going against everyone else. And that one fish that was going against everyone else, that was not the good fish. That fish was not in with, not, it was going against the norm, going against, and basically that fish should not be. Well, of course, that fish was me. They didn't say it was me, but he knew exactly what they were saying. And so, and then they began to say, well, I think this means, that this fish should really, come in alignment, and, all of these different things. And my husband said to them, he said, I see the fish differently, and they looked, and he said, I see the fish as making their path and maybe upsetting the cart and finding some new paths maybe that we all need to look at, because maybe there's something wrong with everybody moving the same way. We have our own ideas, we have our own thoughts. And so it was just really great because he, and so he defended me, what I mean? And basically, as you don't have to, this is a good thing, think your own way. So that's what I think about, is that we expect everyone to go upstream.
Right. Absolutely. But this is an individual conversation.
It's an individual conversation. Exactly.
And that's the problem. It's that we tend to believe that we all should think the same way. So when I do something different or out of alignment for the way that the society believes we should go, then I'm wrong for it. And then I believe I'm wrong for it because it's against the grain. But it's actually not, right? It's an individual conversation.
It really is. We'll come back and talk about the individual conversation that it is when you're just, trying to figure out who you are, and what is it that you want to do. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Living a Life by Design podcast with my very special guest, Charcee Starks. And we are going to continue our conversation of the house and the woods, Such a great concept, y'all. And our conversation has been powerful. So on our break, we were just speaking about how Jesus went against the norm. The people that were following him didn't go according to the status quo, and so it's something to really think about, that many times we think that you have to go with the status quo of how everything is. But when you said that, I thought about the scriptures that says, hey, if you're going to follow me, you're going to get in alignment with me. There's just some things you're going to have to risk it all. You just have to, it's a risk that you take. And if you follow me, if you live the life that I have created you to live, there's some people that they're not going to understand. There's some people that won't have anything to do with you. They'll disagree with you. And so there's risk, there's a death, there's a grieving, because you're going to have, some of your best friends may not be your best friends anymore. And so let's continue to talk about that, because you said, there was something you said, risking it all. You have to risk it all, but you don't have to lose it all.
Right. Yeah. And that's the whole thing, because it's an individual conversation, and because this is your life to design. This is, it's yours, right? And everything else outside of that your environment will change positively as you get more aligned internally. Yeah. So the external will match the internal as you start making these choices. And you do have to be willing to risk it all, but you won't lose it all, because you're going to gain so much. And if you think of the idea that we in this lifetime, we have the capacity for so much, right? Mm-hmm. If you always hold on to everything that you pick up along the way, you're never going to have the capacity for what comes next.
Right.
You have to put things down in order to replace them with new things.
I
It
love that. I love that. Yeah.
must, right?
Must. You got
But
to
if
clean house.
you got to clean house, it's
Yeah.
like buying new clothes. Your
Yeah.
closet can only hold so much.
So
Get
much.
rid of some of those old clothes, put new ones in, right? And so it's the same thing in life, right? It's the same thing in experience. It's the same thing in what you want in your life. You have to be willing to let go of some to replace it with new some to match the identity of the person you've become.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And it's small things, little things, because we're so used to putting on that same face. We're so used to having that same identity. And the grief comes in like the who am I without it, right? Like just really bringing it back to that.
Right.
I'm so like, it is so misaligning, right? To think of like, oh, I just do it because it's there.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're so used to it, I just do it because it's there. And one of the things that I do with my clients, which is such a small thing, but really makes a huge impact, is to wake up every day for 1 week. Every day for 1 week, wake up every day and decide what you want to eat for breakfast. That's it. That's the assignment.
Right. Right.
Right? Don't eat what's just in your fridge. Don't eat what you always eat. Don't eat what's convenient. Really listen. Like take a quick desire check.
Yeah.
What do I actually want in my body today? What's going to nourish me? What's going to feel good to start my day? What's the thing that I want to have for breakfast? Most people fail that week. Most people go, Charcee, I just didn't do it. Like I couldn't figure it out. Or I just ate the yogurt because it was convenient. Or I ate a bar on my way to the office. But that wasn't necessarily what you desired. And if it was, great, wonderful. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with the thing that you've always done.
Right.
If it's
Right.
what you desire.
Right. Right.
Right. So you don't necessarily have to lose everything. If you decide every day you want to eat boiled eggs every day and you wake up and you're like, what do I desire? I do desire those boiled eggs today. Great.
And it's great. Yeah.
Wonderful. Then you're living a life of desire already. Right.
But you have to make sure that that is actually what you want, right?
Absolutely.
And not because that's what you've been doing all along.
Right.
And I think sometimes there's a thin line, because I often hear that, people say, oh, well, I'm living my best life. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And sometimes I'm wondering, okay, but what does that mean for you? And are you living your best life, or are you saying that because it's your best life according to someone else? Or so if you are saying, well, I do want, like for me, I drink my cup of coffee every morning. And so if I did that, I would check myself and say, no, I really do want my cup of coffee every morning. But there are some mornings I do want my cup of coffee and I want like a boiled egg. I do want something else. But here's the other desire. I don't want to make it.
Right.
Right. So then I'm back to, well, I'm just going to drink my cup of coffee. Does that make sense?
Right. And the question becomes, do I desire this or this more?
Exactly.
What do I desire more in this moment?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And the conflict comes all the way back to self-awareness. That is the part, that's the piece. If you're self-aware enough to know, I don't want to make it, so it's not worth it for me to have it.
Yeah.
Then you're still in alignment.
Yeah. Yeah.
But most people are not self-aware. We don't slow down enough to ask ourselves, what do I actually want?
Mm-hmm.
What do I actually desire? We haven't. We don't slow down because we're on the spinning wheel too. We're trying to get to the next day, get to the next moment, get to the next, pay raise, get to the next promotion, get to the next relationship that's going to fulfill us, we're moving so quickly. The beauty of that assignment is you have to slow down enough to take the time to ask yourself, to become self-aware enough to know the answer.
Ooh, say that again. Say that again. You got to say it again. Can you say it again?
I don't know. You have to slow down enough to ask yourself the question, to become aware enough of what you want in order to be aware of what the answer is. I know I say it differently, but
But it's the same thing. And so, guys, she's already given you a homework assignment because, at the end of our podcast, we always give an assignment where you can make some immediate changes. So you already have one thing that this week, this week or next week, right? Begin to ask yourself, what is it I really want for breakfast? Or how about this? Do I want breakfast?
Absolutely.
And if I want breakfast, what do I want for breakfast? And I like to add the other question. And am I willing? This is am I willing to take the risk, let's say, of cooking breakfast or taking a detour to get the breakfast that I want? And so while we're talking about breakfast, this is really life. This is what I really want. Am I willing to take the risk for it?
Right.
Am I willing to go after it? Am I willing to just be me?
Right.
Am I willing to do that? How important is this for me?
Right. And the part is, what do you lose for it? Because
Yeah.
that's where the grief comes in, right?
Yeah.
If you know that the favorite place you want to go to for breakfast is the diner across town, you lose some time.
Yeah.
Right. And in this case, right, like this is a surface level concept, right?
Yeah.
You lose the time, but you still lose something. Is losing that worth gaining what you desire?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So
that's it.
Surface level concept or the depths of your life concept.
Yeah.
Is it worth it to lose something that you're used to having, or that or that's attached to your identity? Or are you the person who shows up on work all the time and you stop to get this breakfast? You're going to be the person who's a little bit late to work. Is it worth it? Is it worth it for you to have this thing that that you desire? Or do you desire to be that person more? And there's always going to be loss with gain in this case, right? There's always going to be gain with loss. And that's why grief is so important. And, you said something earlier about being angry.
Mm-hmm.
But I lost myself and I was angry. And I really believe that once you realize that, your self-awareness became aware of that, you were probably in the grief process without knowing you were in the grief process.
Exactly. When I look back and I think about it, yeah. Yes, right. Definitely.
And I would say, just from knowing you these last 4 years, that you're really living a life of desire. I mean, you're really living a life that you designed and you desired, and what did you have to let go of to get here? I mean, it's probably a number of things, but you didn't lose being a mom. You didn't lose being a wife.
I'm a better mom, as a matter of fact.
Right.
Yeah. A better wife, better in everything.
Right. Yeah. Because you're aligned internally. So your external environment begins to match the internal alignment. That's the whole part. Like, that's the part that it's scary to start walking towards the woods, but it's worth it in the end. And I don't know, like, sure, we start with breakfast, right? Sure, we start with something easy, like, how do I nourish my body today? But you have to listen to your body in order to know how to nourish her or him or they or them, right? Yeah. And that's why I start with food, because, food is really made to nourish us, but we have to listen to us in order to know what we like. Sometimes I wake up and I have a salad for breakfast, because I think, like, that's what my body wants right now. Yeah. I've had burgers for breakfast. I've had, like, it doesn't have to be breakfast food either, right?
Right.
That's the whole thing, is like, we have to break the constructs. Right. Because those are the things that are holding us in this house that doesn't really belong to us. We're renting it. We're renting the house. It doesn't belong to us.
Yeah, it doesn't. You're right. It doesn't. We are renting it. We are definitely renting it. But you're talking about food. But I remember going out with my husband one time. We went out to a place where they served breakfast all day. And so we went, of course, in late afternoon, dinner time. And he ordered breakfast. And I remember looking at him and said, "It's dinner time. Why are you ordering breakfast?" And he looked at me. He said, "Because I want to. Because I want eggs and bacon." And you know what I mean? I'm like, and I looked and I said, "Oh, okay, well, I guess you could do that, but it's like, so I say that because sometimes you got to check yourself, even when you guys say, wait a minute. Okay, yeah, no, you could do that. For me, I check myself, even when I'm, in when I'm speaking with people, it's like, no, if that's what you think, that's your desire. Okay. What does that mean for you? How do you get there? What do you do?
Right.
Yeah.
And
And so I
most,
have to check myself. Why can't we have breakfast?
right. And most times, it's a matter of control, ego. There's all these other, I mean, there's so many things mixed in this conversation,
Oh,
but
yeah.
what are you trying to control? Right. And that's what you're holding on to, the thing that you're trying to control. And that's also, that lies into the question, like, well, who are you without that thing? Right. And so, and you gave really good external examples, like you tried to control your son's college, career, life experience. You asked the question to control what your husband was eating, right? Like,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
a control factor,
It
right?
is.
There's
It
a,
is.
a matter of like, I'm trying to hold on to this thing that I believe is so true and so like absolutely mine. And so absolutely, it's absolute.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. This is the way to go, right?
And we try to control all of that. Why? So we could um, fit into this plan that we've always been told we were to fit into this house
Because it's comfortable.
because it's very comfortable. This is what I know.
Right. And that's what our identity is attached to.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's why it's so hard to change for a
Mhm.
lot of people. But you think we do get to a limit. When you said what you said about your life, like you just woke up one day and you were angry and you got to your limit of tolerating this version of comfort that no longer fit the identity of the woman you were becoming. And those are the points of transition. That's transformation. That's change.
And what even happened, Charcee, is that I began not to like myself.
Right.
And that's what happens when we're not really living ourselves. Then we begin not to like ourselves
Right.
because we don't like, wait a minute, who am I? Yeah.
Right. Because you've abandoned yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when you abandon yourself, then you don't trust yourself. And the concept of getting to your woods is the concept of self-leadership, which is what I said in the beginning. And if you won't follow you, who will? Who will?
Who will? Who will?
So if
Yeah.
you're over here abandoning yourself and you're not following yourself and you're not listening to yourself and you're not aware of yourself, who will? Children, clients, any of that. You have to
Yeah.
get so aligned and so aware because your self-leadership matters for your self-alignment, and your self-alignment matters for your self-trust, and your self-trust matters for anything that you want to build externally that feels aligned.
Mhm.
And so they all play together.
Yeah.
So what are you willing to let go of control of, right? To have that alignment and that self-awareness and to be in self-leadership that feels like your own, and you are really a living example of this. And that's, I think, why we can go on and on and on, because you're doing it, and it's not 100% of the time, and it's not always perfect.
Right. Right.
But where am I doing it enough that I feel aligned? And that way, when you feel unaligned.
Right. Exactly.
You're so aligned in so many places, you feel unaligned in others. And it's really, I mentioned like this breakup that I've been going through, and totally 100% respect my ex-partner who made a decision to find alignment, and it required the letting go of our relationship. And while it was heartbreaking for me and I didn't want it and I wanted to control and I wanted to hold on, I held on way too tight at times because I didn't want to lose this thing that I thought was, I had the belief system that this is the thing I'm supposed to have. On the other side, she was choosing a life of alignment that was, the risk was losing our relationship, which we did lose. Still love each other. I think the world of her, like she's an amazing human, amazing coach, an amazing person on the planet. And she's becoming more amazing because she's more aligned.
Right.
and we're just not together.
Yeah.
And the idea that like I had to lose for her alignment also put me into my own alignment. Like, okay, that was that. Who am I without it? Who am I without her? What questions do I get to ask myself now? So sometimes it's not always our choice either, right? But you're going to get, if you're self-aware enough, you'll understand that at some point that lack of self-awareness or whatever, wherever you're misaligned, you're going to start to find alignment in again.
Yeah.
But it's not always 100%. Like you don't just wake up and like, oh, I'm an aware, aligned, integrity living person. And there's no offsets or anything. And there always are.
Yeah.
It's
There's a process, right? It's a process that you know, that you go through so you can become aligned with who you are, with your belief system, with how you feel about yourself, you know, just everything. It's just a process, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
It really is. And there's so many areas, right? You think career, you think health, you think love, you think relationships, you think all of the you know, areas of life that we're living in this human experience get touched by this idea of, can I get self-aware enough to lead myself and trust myself enough to live in my own woods, to expand, to
grow.
To grow, yeah.
To grow.
Have a life I actually desire, that I wake up to every day and feel aligned
about it. Yeah.
Because it's mine and I made it and I chose it. And it feels
and
like,
even in the midst of the challenges, you could go back to, you know, this is I'm here. I'm supposed to be doing this. This is who, you know, and it doesn't mean when you're aligned and when you're in the woods that you're not going to have challenges. There's going to be some, what do you call it? Them little things on the ground that you may trip over, or, you know, a branch may fall here, those type of things. But then you have enough resilience to where you can say, okay, no, I know what I've learned. I know what I've become. So let me just work the tools. Let me ask you, how can anyone reach you? Right, as we're coming down to the end of our podcast, how can we reach you, Charcee? Anybody wants to connect, they need coaching from you. How can we reach you?
Perfect. Just run to my woods. I'll find you there. No. Emailing me is really, really great. So you can email me at hello@thehouseandthewoods.com. I'm the one who checks it. That's where I'm at in my life. That's what I desire for my life right now. And so just emailing me.
Yeah.
Letting me know where you found me.
If you're not sure and you're interested in connecting with Charcee, then you could just email me and I can send you all of her information, her email address, and how to just connect with her. This has been a powerful conversation. If you could just really quick give us the assignment for this week. But before she does that, y'all listen, don't forget to join me every second and fourth Friday for the Living a Life by Design podcast. Check me out on fddwomen.com. My retreat in Dubai is coming up. That's going to be super, super powerful. It's for men and women. And I'm so stoked about it. I'm in alignment with the retreats and doing it. It's going to be powerful and transformative. Yet a lot of fun as we tour Dubai, doing all kinds of stuff in Dubai and shopping for those of you who like to shop like me, shopping. So give us the assignment as we close, Char.
So I think the assignment is exactly what we spoke about, because it's such a good one to start with. It's, you know, try 5 days. You know, what do you choose to put in your body every morning for 5 days that feels like the thing your body wants? Start there. And if it's not breakfast, and it's lunch, and if not lunch, then it's dinner. You know, you choose, you make it yours, you build it as you desire it, and see what comes out. And if you realize that you didn't, right, then look at that. You know, why didn't I? But get really aware of your self-awareness, you know, and that's the assignment.
Yep, that's the assignment. And listen, let's be accountable. So if you do the assignment, let us know how it worked out for you. DM me, send me an email, send Charcee an email, and be accountable to yourself. And then let us know, hey, this really worked great. This is what I got from it. I'm still struggling with this. So let's talk. Take care. Have a great rest of your week and next week and wherever you are in the world. Bye-bye. God bless.
You have been listening to Living a Life by Design, the journey back to you, and living 365 days of purpose with host Esther Graham. Listen or watch live every second and fourth Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com. Discover that what is possible is already in you. God designed a phenomenal life for you. Esther helps you ignite that energy behind your personal journey for a deeper joy and peace, living 365 days of purpose. For more information on living a life by design, visit fddwomen.com.